The emergency room was a chaotic symphony of beeping machines and hushed, urgent voices. Amidst it all, Nurse Chloe moved with a practiced calm, her focus absolute on the elderly patient gasping for breath. She was a beacon of order in the storm, a veteran of this front line. Just as she was adjusting the oxygen mask, a shrill voice cut through the tension like a shard of glass. "Excuse me, can I get some service here? My husband is a very important man." Chloe turned to see a woman draped in designer clothes, her face a mask of impatience. Her husband, a man in a tailored suit, sat on a nearby gurney, looking more annoyed than ill. Chloe offered a polite, professional smile. "Ma'am, I'll be with you as soon as I stabilize this patient. We're experiencing a high volume of critical cases right now." The woman, Mrs. Covington, scoffed. "Critical? He looks half dead already. My husband pays this hospital's bills. We demand immediate attention." She gestured towards Chloe's hands. "To treat him. Else to treat him. Someone more qualified." The implication hung in the air, heavy and ugly. Chloe's smile tightened, but her voice remained steady. "Ma'am, I assure you, I am fully qualified." She turned back to her patient, whose breathing was evening out. A flicker of relief passed over Chloe's face. She had done her job, but the sting of the insult remained. She had worked twice as hard to get where she was, battling prejudices and assumptions every step of the way. This woman's casual cruelty was a familiar wound. Just then, a commanding presence entered the emergency bay. Dr. Alistair Finch, the hospital's revered chief of surgery, strode in, his eyes scanning the room. He was a legend, a man whose skill was matched only by his stern demeanor. He made a beeline for Chloe's station. Mrs. Covington's face lit up. "Doctor. Finally, someone competent. My husband, Harold Covington, needs your immediate attention." Dr. Finch barely glanced at her. His gaze was fixed on Chloe. "Report, Nurse Miller," he said, his voice a low rumble. Chloe, standing tall, gave a concise and flawless report on her elderly patient's condition and the interventions she'd performed. Dr. Finch nodded, a rare sign of approval. "Excellent work. Your quick thinking likely saved his life." He then turned his steely eyes to Mrs. Covington. "And you, madam. Your husband's chart says he has a mild case of indigestion. You'll be seen when a doctor is available. This is an emergency room, not a private club." Mrs. Covington's jaw dropped. "Do you know who my husband is? He's on the board of this hospital. Could have your job." Dr. Finch let out a short, humorless laugh. "He could try, yeah, but I doubt he'd succeed." He then looked back at Chloe, his expression softening almost imperceptibly. "Nurse Miller is one of the finest nurses in this hospital. She trained under me. Her judgment is impeccable, and her dedication is beyond question. If you have a problem with her treating you, then I suggest you find another hospital." The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Covington, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up, his face red with embarrassment. "Eleanor, that's enough. I'm fine. Let's just wait." He looked at Chloe, a hint of apology in his eyes. But Mrs. Covington was not done. Her face twisted with fury. "This is outrageous. I will not be spoken to this way by her." She pointed a manicured finger at Chloe. What happened next? No one could have predicted. Dr. Finch stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Chloe, a protective gesture that was as subtle as it was powerful. He looked directly at Mrs. Covington, and his voice was dangerously quiet. "She has a name. It's Nurse Chloe Miller, and she also happens to be my daughter." The entire emergency room seemed to hold its breath. Mrs. Covington's face went from furious red to a pale, sickly white. She stared from the legendary surgeon to the calm, composed black nurse, the pieces clicking into place with an audible clang. The world-renowned Dr. Finch, a white man, was Chloe's father. She had just insulted the daughter of the most powerful man in the hospital. The irony was suffocating. Chloe, for her part, looked at her father, a mixture of surprise and gratitude in her eyes. They hadn't always had the easiest relationship. He was demanding, a perfectionist who pushed her harder than anyone. But in that moment, seeing him stand up for her, not just as a professional, but as his daughter, filled her with a warmth that chased away the cold sting of Mrs. Covington's words. He had never done something so public before. Dr. Finch wasn't finished. He turned to Mr. Covington. "Harold," he said, his tone now laced with ice, "I think you and I need to have a conversation about the hospital's code of conduct and about your wife's behavior. It seems we have a zero-tolerance policy for this kind of disrespect towards our staff, a policy you, as a board member, should be well aware of." Mr. Covington withered under the surgeon's glare. He nodded meekly, unable to meet his eyes. He grabbed his wife's arm, pulling her towards a chair in the waiting area, her face a perfect portrait of humiliation. The power she thought her husband's money and status gave her had evaporated in an instant. She had tried to tear someone down based on her own prejudice, only to find out she had picked a fight with a giant. As the Covingtons retreated, a few of the other nurses and doctors who had witnessed the exchange gave Chloe subtle smiles and nods of support. The tense atmosphere of the ER began to return to its normal, chaotic rhythm, but something had shifted. A small victory for decency had been won. Chloe turned to her father. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly, though her heart was still pounding. Dr. Finch looked at her, his stern expression finally breaking into a genuine, proud smile. "Yes," he said, his voice full of a feeling he rarely showed. "I did. I'm proud of you, Chloe. Not just for the nurse you've become, but for the person you are. Never let anyone make you feel like you were less than." He placed a hand on her shoulder, a rare, comforting touch. In the middle of the chaos, it was a quiet moment of connection. A father finally seeing his daughter not just as his student, but as his equal, a hero in her own right. Chloe smiled back, a real radiant smile. The insults of the ignorant couldn't touch her now. She had work to do. Thank you for watching.